Welcome back to Billy Meier Books. I'm Vivienne Legg and this is Mike Whelan, and in this video we're going to be discussing the topic of neutrality and neutral thinking and what that means in various contexts, such as not taking one side or another in a political situation. Mike?
Okay. I made some notes to talk about on what is neutrality. As we grow up, we learn to think, assess, and judge our surroundings, the environment, our homes, our businesses, and the entire reality. And from this learned thinking, our feelings and emotions rise up, and then mixed with ideas and our thoughts form assumptions and prejudices, and these become subjective. So what I mean by that is, as we grow and live and experience life, we judge things, we make assessments of people, we make the environment and everything. And during our lifetime, these assessments and these judgments are naturally subjective, and they condition us to form opinions and ideas about how things are or how they should be. And this is really the first step to closing off any kind of neutrality. Learning how to become neutral in our thinking, and especially towards other people, is extremely difficult. And it takes many, many years of hard internal work in order to recognize our thoughts and our feelings that flow from these judgments that we make essentially on other people. Every day we're confronted with many different types of people at the grocery store or at our work or at our restaurant that in some cases can be very opinionated and have very strong feelings or beliefs towards one thing or another, and they can even be aggressive. And when you meet these kind of people, it's even more challenging to be neutral. Another example would be people who are annoying to us, maybe a coworker or another student in high school or college, or a friend or acquaintance. And if we feel that this person is annoying to us, that's not being neutral. That's sort of the first step. Whatever the situation we're in, or whatever the reason, we make an internal assessment or internal judgment of the people that we come into contact with. In simple terms, we pass judgment. We maybe somebody's upset, maybe they've had a bad day, or for whatever reason we have an encounter with them. We form an opinion, we form an assessment in our mind. And most people don't take another step or another look or even look at themselves at all to see, am I making a judgment or am I making an assessment of the person? It's almost automatic at this point that when we come into contact with another person, we've looked at what they're wearing or how old they are, or if they're fat or thin or whatever the situation may be. We're constantly making judgments and decisions about people that we meet. And every time we encounter in life, we immediately assess something. And this goes all the way down to even a flower. If you go out to the garden and you look at a flower, oh, that's a beautiful thing. Or maybe you see a dead bug and it's ugly. Even all the way down to just viewing something in nature, we make an assessment in our mind. And that, even all the way down to that point, that's not being neutral. And this thinking process, or this thought process of how we judge everything in our life, is really what has to be assessed within each of us. Each person has to assess how much and to what extent they make a judgment or an assessment of some person or something in life. This is sort of the basics of it. And neutrality has to begin with that internal assessment to understand that we're not neutral because how we've been raised and everything like that. This is sort of the first assessment on neutrality.
Right. I like to point out when we discuss neutrality and neutral thinking that while what you say is absolutely true, that we have to avoid making prejudicial assessments of people. We still have to make some kind of an assessment in order to function. We still have, what are we doing when we're not making those judgments that you're saying? What is it that we do instead? And I come back to the same explanation. You perceive people for what they are. But there's often an erroneous idea around that neutral thinking, for instance, means that you don't actually recognise any negatives or positives. You know, if I'm being neutral, I don't even think about something negative that's going on. But that's not what's meant here. It's meant that you see all the negatives and you see all the positives for exactly what they are, not from some preconceived idea. You see it all exactly as it is. For instance, that annoying person you talked about, you see what might be destructive or selfish behaviour or aggressive behaviour, and you recognise it as such, but you don't then yourself get
react.
Angry and you know.
Yeah.
You just simply say, okay, this person's behaving this way, and you neutrally, positively work out a correct response based on a clear picture of what it is, rather than thinking, he's just like my father, I hate him, or whatever.
Right.
You know. To back up a bit, neutrality in this more political sense, right? We're talking about not taking sides. When we take sides in politics, when we say, okay, well, I always support the Labor Party, as in Australia we have the Labor Party and the Liberal Party are the main parties, people will just always support one party or the other, rather than thinking of every single issue that they deal with on its own merits. So it's like, you know, if the Labor Party says so, then it's true, and if it's, you know, the other party, then it's not true, you know. And that's prejudice. That's not neutral thinking. So in politics, being neutral means not just supporting one party, not just supporting one ideology, but taking every single topic on its own merit and forming your own individual response to it, not even siding with your family, but just with yourself. Your own opinion is what's worth considering. So every individual considers their own opinion and indicates what that is, and then the decisions are made. So this whole thing of party politics is not in the slightest bit neutral, you know. So, but coming back to individuals, you know, being neutral about another person's negatives. There's a useful quote.
Okay.
And I don't know what we do with Billy's useful quotes.
Yeah.
Because I just cannot do it justice out of the top of my head. In the way, in Meditation from a Clear Perspective, which is Billy's second meditation book, which we're just doing the final corrections on now. He says, the way to positive feelings leads via positive thoughts, in the wise that everything is taken as it fundamentally is, and indeed without it being harmed, hated, defamed, or condemned, and so forth. This also applies to human beings who must be accepted in their kind and wise, just as they are. So it's not a matter of saying, well, I'm neutral, therefore I don't have an opinion. I mean, okay, we probably need to discuss the word opinion, but I'm neutral, therefore I don't see any negative behaviour. It's not that. So if sometimes you'll say, that political leader is acting in a very dangerous and destructive way, and someone will say, oh, you're being very negative. And I say, no, that's just recognising it for what it is. Being negative would be, and we should all just go and, you know, knock his brains out.
Overthrow the government, yeah, or whatever. Yeah.
You know, or getting heated up about it, or saying there's nothing that can be done, or that sort of thing would be negative. But to just recognise it, if it indeed is negative, is not being negative. what was the other significant point I had in relation to all of that?
I could also make a point on the behavior of others. If someone cuts you off, or if someone is mean to you or says something, it's very difficult to be neutral in those instances, because we automatically have a defensive reaction that comes up, and that's what has to be neutralized is this defensive reaction, because we've already passed judgment on the person, and once we pass judgment, if they've done something or they've cut us off and we're driving, once we've passed an internal judgment and made an assessment, then thinking follows that. So we've made this assessment and now we think about it. And then from this thinking saying, oh, he was such a jerk, da 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 da, then emotions flow from that. And then when emotions and feelings, when they start flowing, more thoughts notice how you feel because he's just cut me off and he didn't. And this spirals really out of control, where the thinking follows. So we have the judgment, and then we have thoughts on that, and then we have feelings that arise from that, and then more thoughts follow those feelings because now I feel this way. Now I'm thinking about these feelings, and it just spirals out of control. And that's
chain reaction.
A chain reaction, all from not being neutral up front, all from not having that neutral position when something like that happened.
Yeah. I'm sure people are still wondering, many people probably still wondering, how does negative come into, we're talking about neutral and positive. What's negative doing in there? And I've struggled with these explanations as well. How is it meant? And there's another section that I find helpful in this meditation book.
Okay.
To do with the thoughts. Is it? Yes. Positive feelings. The feelings are formed according to the nature of the thoughts, negative or positive. With regard to success, progress and development, solely and exclusively positive thoughts and feelings are important, through which the always cooperating negative in them is usefully processed positively. So you process the negative positively and thus neutralize and positively and transformed into that which is neutral, equalized, and therewith also into correspondingly positive feeling. So this is all based on the teaching that there's negative and positive in everything. And again, it's something we should take the time to try and notice in nature. Nature is where the great teacher. Just notice how that actually works, that there's nothing without negative and positive. So we're not trying to exclude negatives in our lives, we're just trying to be neutral, positive about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, there would be no evolution and no learning if there were no negatives, right? Because you have to have both. You have to have the negative experiences, or whatever it is, negative experiences and positive experiences, or negative thoughts and positive thoughts, in order to bring them together to have something more neutral or balanced. And sometimes the negative and the positive can be brought together, and a negative will come out of that. And then another positive has to be added to that to neutralize that again. It doesn't always go negative or always positive, but the negative and the positive always have to be together. They always come together to form something new again.
It's just simply how life is. It's one of those creational laws. The negative and the positive always are present. The other thing I wanted to say was, it's obviously what you're saying is quite correct, that we need to analyse our thoughts about how we are being non-neutral in relation to other people, for instance, which is really the easiest example, for us to think about. And the worst problem. Yeah, usually. But I like to come to it again from the other end. How do we do it? And I find that the explanations about it, it's taken me years to even get this far, and I really don't understand it, very well yet. I'm only partly understanding it. I'm trying to just give a few pointers. But the best way for me to discover how to see things neutrally is, again, through the practice of meditation, where if you are perceiving reality rather than your prejudices, which is what meditation is for in various forms, do your meditation and then take that state of mind that you've created and direct it at the other person and see what you then come up with, at which point, you just dumped all this baggage that you were carrying around, all this leftover thinking from other situations. You've dumped it if you've had a good meditate.
Yeah.
And so you can look at somebody afresh and just see them for what they are.
Yeah.
And so feeling it, feeling what that is like, and recognizing that you're suddenly so much more tolerant, or suddenly so much stronger in standing up for yourself when otherwise you would have been pushed over by that person. It can take a lot of different forms. That is really instructive, and to my mind, if you can't get your brain around all these explanations, it comes back to you need your own personal experience to understand what it really means. So if you can get yourself into a neutral positive state through the good practices and then attempt to react with a person, that will tell you what it feels like, how it should be, and what results it can have.
I have a short story to tell you. It just happened yesterday or the day before during the interviews, because I had caught myself, but it was after the fact. So one of the interviewees, Kuzuyar Osawa, the Japanese guy, I had talked with him before during the social event. And his language, both in English and German, are very limited, extremely limited. I mean, just one word here, one word there. So there's a big language barrier.
Right.
Well, we had been communicating on email to set this up because he wanted to interview, and he was going to do it in English. He was going to maybe translate it, or maybe in Japanese. Anyway, I had written to all of the interviewees saying, "Hey, we're going to meet in the parking lot at your assigned time, please don't be late." So everybody's come, so it comes up to his time, and I'm up here. I'm in the studio here waiting, and I think, okay, I'm going to go down to the parking lot. Nobody there. So I immediately get mad. I immediately think, oh my God, because there's people after him. I'm thinking, okay, it's not going to be late. Where is he? So now I'm frustrated. Mm-hmm. So I storm off down towards the house, down towards the center, and I come around the corner, and he's sitting in the tables in there. Mm-hmm. So I walk in, he goes, oh, okay, I'm all ready. And it just dawned on me that because of the language barrier, he was sitting there on time. He just didn't understand that it was the parking lot. So, all of that uproar in my mind and everything, I was completely non-neutral. I was, frustrated. And I didn't say, and he didn't know, I didn't say anything, but this is just going on in my head. Once I saw that he was sitting there ready to go, on time, but in the wrong location, and it was probably language barrier. I thought, man, Mike, you just, all of that for not being neutral. I probably,
a whole construct of stuff that arose from prejudging the situation.
Yep.
We do it so frequently and fill our worlds with these prejudices.
So as I'm walking back with him, to come up here to the studio, I'm just thinking to myself, I can't even practice what I teach. It's just even just all this bigger. I should have known better. I know how to think. I know how to do it. But in that moment, it's that whole thing just sort of spiraled out of control. And it was another lesson for me. So anyway, it worked out okay. But it was just another life example for me on how I was not neutral.
Yeah.
I should have said, okay, is there some explanation? I already knew he had a language barrier, but it didn't cross my mind at the time. I thought, where is he? It's his time and he's not here. That was going through my mind.
That's a good example, though. It's a good illustration.
It is. Yeah.
And I'm sure most people can relate to doing that.
Yeah. So I learned, hopefully next time will be less that way.
Mm-hmm. So that in summary, the key is, again, reality. Study reality.
Yeah.
Because then you can't be prejudiced.
Right.
It's a study of reality, this teaching.
Yeah. Okay. Have we covered? I think we've covered quite a few points of neutrality, and it's very difficult to do. It's something that we should strive for, and monitor our thinking and how we're feeling, and how often we judge, how often we pass judgment on every single little thing in life. Like, I like the color of those blinds, the color of the flower, or the wood, or this food. It even goes to, I like this food and I don't like this food.
Oh, and now I feel like we need to extend our session here.
Okay, let's do it.
So I'm thinking, but to say that you like something doesn't mean that you're necessarily being prejudiced.
No.
You can have preferences based on a true perception of what something is, because we're all different. So your personality will prefer certain things, which is different from mine, which will prefer other things. That doesn't mean, if you have a preference like that, it doesn't mean you're being non-neutral. You know, it's only if it's not based on reality. That's the key, isn't it? You know, if it's like, oh, there's a flower, I hate flowers because your mother always had flowers and you hate your mother, or something. Well, that would be a prejudice, you know. Or I love flowers because, you know, you had some nice experience where, you know, even that would be prejudicial, rather than just recognizing them for what they are and coming to appreciate them as for what they are, you know. It's based on some other event associated with them, whether
that you're attaching to that?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to recognize that it's just whether it's reality based, you know.
Yeah. There's another point I might bring up to that. We're getting a little bit off topic now, but when you talked about the food preferences and stuff, this streams from the ego. The preferences ultimately comes back from the ego. Now, I don't know if
Does
that's...
it
does.
How does that work?
Well, the ego likes to present itself in that I like this or I don't like this, and it expresses itself in that way. That, you know, I don't like this color or this type of food or these types of clothes, or I want to go drink a beer, or I should drink water, or I want this, I want that. This all streams from the ego. So,
how do you then deal with things like dietary requirements and Billy has described
physical limitations. Those are physical limitations.
Well, Billy describes how there are different colours associated with different personalities and things like that, so that we actually genuinely do, because of our differences, legitimately have different preferences and things like that. And so if you're thinking, I would like to have vegetables for lunch.
But I think we might have a confusion here. If you're saying legitimate preferences, because let's say a dietary requirement, let's use that, right? I wouldn't call that a preference. I mean, that's a requirement, because if you have, let's just say, stomach problem and you can't eat certain foods, that's no longer a preference. I mean, you can't do that because your body won't take it, right?
Right. Okay.
No, yes, or
I think I need to think more about all of these
Okay.
things.
Yeah, it's a little bit off topic too. So.
Well, it's right on topic. It's just that it's sort of endless, and I'm not quite sure how to tie it up. So it's probably a good cue to stop.
Okay.
And let you know. Obviously, we're confirming for the viewers that there is a lot we still don't understand or don't agree about.
Sure.
And that's reflective of the fact that we're only partly along our journey of understanding
of
this teaching.
Yes.
You know, we're just giving some guidelines.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm glad that we've revealed this to the viewer, because it's important for people to understand that.
Sure.
You know, all of our understanding is incomplete on these things.
Well, and it's nice to have an exchange. It's nice to exchange different ideas and things like that as well.
And reveal where points of interest need to be resolved. You know, that's stimulating.
Yes.
Stimulating, and we'll get to that with the topic we'll do at some point about relationships and relating to each other.
Yes.
The need to have a back and forth of opinions. For our health, for our learning.
We have a topic coming up, interpersonal relationships.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, thank you for joining us on this episode of What is Neutrality, even though we talked about a lot of other things. That's Vivienne Legg, and I'm Mike Whelan. Thanks for joining us.